Hi guys, coming to you today with a best in slot Marksman Hunter gear guide for patch 9.2. One-stop shop for your legendaries, trinkets, weapons, armor, everything you're going to need for 9.2, where you want to grab it from, and how to get it, how to acquire it, how to kind of do everything you need to do in regards to gear for the next patch. So without further ado, let's get right on into it, shall we? We're going to start off with our weapon. Now, it's a debate right now which weapon you're going to use. It's been very hard to sim these accurately. I think they're going to end up being very close. However, I think the 285 weapon from Rygalon is actually going to barely be better. But if you can't get your hands on one of those, the Yasm, the Rift Breaker, which drops from Tazavesh the Veiled Market, might actually end up being a better weapon for progression. It's easier to get. You can get it from Tazavesh week 1 pretty much if you just keep farming the same dungeon. And so you can also get it from Great Vault. You're going to want the Great Vault for the higher eye level, obviously. But yeah, it's a really reliable weapon that pretty much outclasses everything else unless you have the 259 bow from Sylvanas. If you don't have that, if you just have the heroic, it's not worth. The Tazavesh bow will outclass that. But yeah, your two options really are Astral Verdict, which drops from Rygalon. That's the 10th boss of the raid. It will not be available for week 1 heroic. The boss doesn't unlock until the second week when mythic unlocks, so that's something to keep in mind. It drops at I-259 for normal, 272 for heroic, and 285 for mythic. And the bow from Tazavesh, it's I-278. I want to say it's 262 for if you just get it as a dungeon drop. But the passive is actually really cool. Every time you crit with anything, and since we're stacking crit, we're going to be critting a lot. You're going to get a stack of this pre-natural charge. When you reach 5 stacks, your next critical strike will consume all stacks to do a little bit of damage as arcane. One thing to note, this is the 236 eye level bow because it's the only one I could find a picture of. The damage for a 278 bow is going to be significantly higher, so that's something to keep in mind. It is kind of gross stats. It's haste first for Marksman, which isn't what we love, but the passive should outweigh the secondary stats anyways. So these are your two best weapon options, things to consider as you are picking up weapons. This is what they look like. This is Astral Verdict, and this is the Rift Breaker from Tazavesh. Moving on to trinkets, we have 3 from M+ that I would recommend trying to get your hands on, and then 2 raid trinkets. All of these are viable. However, the best combination is going to be both of the raid trinkets or 1 raid trinket and IQD, depending on IQD. IQD can theoretically is the best trinket, right? But you need perfect circumstances where you're getting damage at the right moments, which doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes you get execute damage instead of secondary stats. That's no good. So IQD will always be in the conversation. It'll go up to I-278. It'll always be a great trinket. However, it requires perfect conditions. Your healers can't be low mana. For progression specifically, it's actually a lot worse than it sims, just because you rarely get what you actually need. So that's something to consider. You get IQD obviously from the other side. It's really kind of a pain in the butt to farm, in my opinion. That's why I tried to provide alternatives to that trinket and to downplay it as much as possible because I don't want to go farm for it again. If I get it in Great Vault, great. I don't think I'm going into the other side to farm it personally, but that's just me. Overcharge Anima Battery drops from Spires of Ascension. Gets you haste on a proc, a little bit of speed. It's a minute 30 cooldown, so it always lines up with your Wild Spirits. It's actually really good. It gets you like an extra aim shot or two during your True Shot cooldown, which is pretty good. Definitely worth using, especially if you can get an I-278 version of it from the Great Vault. The other one is the new Tazavesh dungeon trinket. It's not new, but the dungeon's, going to be M+ now. So it's new in the fact that it can be the eye level that matches everything else. So Soleil's Secret Technique, it'll give you some good secondary stats. It'll also give a partner or someone that you pair with the same amount of, or a lower amount of secondary stats but the same secondary stat. And it lasts, you have to reset it every time you die, but it lasts for 30 minutes. So Pretty good trinket there. The raid trinkets, though, this is where it gets interesting. The Scars of Fraternal Strife, I'm going to talk about more on the next page that we're going to look at. Just give me a minute to get through this. It drops at I-285 from the Jailer, which is the 11th boss of the raid. It has 0 primary stats, which is important. And it has lots of different effects, which we're going to get to in the next slide. But the other raid trinket is the First Sigil. And this drops from Prototype Pantheon, which is the 5th boss of the raid. It has a 5-minute cooldown, but a massive amount of versatility granted. And the 1300 verse on a 5-minute cooldown is about a 33% damage bonus for the 20 seconds that you have it. And it's also a huge amount of defensive stats because verse also gives you defensive stuff. So this trinket's going to be very good. However, the 5-minute cooldown means that you're only going to be able to use it once, maybe twice in most fights, except for the final boss. This is going to be really good if you need to burn through a certain phase. So you're going to want to use this trinket to like get through that phase as quickly as possible. Massive amount of damage bonus obviously helps you do that. It's interesting in the fact that the 5-minute cooldown can be very good, can be very bad. If you think about it, you're using this with Lust, so you're getting, usually you're going to want to use this with Lust, so you're getting massive amount of haste, massive amount of burst, versatility, and massive amount of a burst in this window. So it's going to be very strong for big burst. However, if you only get it once, there's some debate as to whether that's going to be good or not. It is very high simming though, so something to check out. Any of these 5 trinkets I would recommend. Any pairing, most of them work well together, so something to keep in mind. But let's look at the Scars of Fraternal Strife and what it can do. So this trinket obviously has no primary stats, so the secondary stat is pretty good as compensation. Now, bear in mind these numbers are taken from a 233 tooltip, so they're probably going to be significantly higher. And because of that, it's not exactly the most accurate thing to look at right now, but everything points to this being a very good trinket. The eye level alone is nice, however, it doesn't translate to primary stat, which is a big trade-off, but when you get to the final rune, it is definitely worth it. So, the way this works, you will affix a domination rune to yourself, and you will gain power at a price. So the first time you use it, and it's a 30-second cooldown, so you're going to want to use it every 30 seconds, you're going to get the first rune, which increases your haste by 68, but 10% of the damage you take will echo again 3 seconds later. So you're going to be taking basically 10% more damage, which can be really bad. However, it's staggered, so that means it gives the healer some time. If you take a big hit of damage, they have time to heal you back up, and then you'll take it again. So it's not just like directly boom, but like 10% flat extra damage. It's not, it's not as bad as it might seem. So that is a big trade-off, but then you get verse, right? And then you get crit, and then you get mastery, and at the end, you get all of those but double. So throughout the fight, you're just gaining an incredible amount of secondary stats every 30 seconds, but you're trading things off for it. So you still have the 10% damage echo, right? You still have all healing reduced is going to be reduced by 5%. You're bleeding now. Your spells and abilities reduce your movement speed. And then when the final rune fades, you're going to explode for 10,000 damage. That's a lot, right? All those add up. That's a lot of negative effects on you. Is the secondary stat trade-off worth it? I think it will be. It's going to be hard to make use out of it in progression when things are already close and when you're already might be kind of sketchy, and hunters are not. Well, hunters are notoriously bad for having defensives, so this is going to be a hard to use trinket, but if you're looking for maximum DPS, this is the trinket that's going to get you that. So it's a trade-off, but it'll be cool to use. It'll be fun to use. Very much looking forward to it. Anyways, let's move on to the neck. There are 2 necks that we could use. One drops at I-278, the other drops at 285. They both come from the raid. One drops from Anduin, which you can get week 1 of raid releasing in heroic at I-265. And it has our best in slot stats, which are crit and mastery. It has a lot of crit, a little bit of mastery, and 300 total stats. However, it's hard to tell you which one of these is going to be better. I imagine it will be the Jailer Trinket, but I mean, haste is not a bad stat for us by any means, but the fact that you're getting a lot less crit kind of sucks, but you're getting more stats overall, so it's going to be close, right? It's not your best stats, but it is good stats. So you're getting 312 good stats from the Jailer necklace. So in total, 12 more stats. It's less than 1% damage. And they're not your best stats, so debatable. I think if you have either one of these, if you're going for purely eye level, obviously the Jailer drops, higher eye level, right? But either one of these necklaces, you should be fine. This is your best necklace. You can make an argument for both. So let's move on to the fun part, tier pieces. These are going to, so the way tier is going to work, right? You can have any piece of gear that you want. If you have a higher eye level gear piece, you can forge that into a tier piece as long as it's in one of the slots, right? Head, hands, legs, chest, or shoulders. So if you have a 285 piece that you want to put tier on, you can do that. However, that piece is going to get translated to have the same secondary stats. So you're not going to be able to game it, right? Basically, if you have something with haste mastery or crit mastery, right, our best stats, and then you want to make it into a chest, right, which we see over here, that chest will become a crit verse chest, but it'll have tier on it, and it'll be eye level 285. So it's kind of a little strange, but the tier pieces we're going to be using are going to be all 4 of them except for the helmet, which we're going to put our Unity legendary power on, because that's the best stat budget for that. We could use the chest, which would also be a good stat budget, but the problem is with chest, it already comes at eye level 285, whereas the helmet only comes at 278. So we're getting more eye levels for making the helmet our Covenant Legendary instead of making the chest. So we're getting more stats in total that way. So that's why this head we won't be using, but we will be using the hands, we will be using legs, we will be using chest, and we'll be using shoulders. Speaking of legendaries, our 2 legendaries that we're going to be using since we get to this patch, which is awesome, is Unity, which we kind of talked about. This basically gives you the legendary effect of any Covenant Legendary, which is kind of bad for Carrion, which is why we're not playing Carrion this tier. We're playing Night Fae and maybe Venthyr for single target. I think Night Fae is still going to be better though. The Night Fae and Venthyr will be close, but Carrion drops off tremendously with how bad the Covenant Legendary is for that class. So we're going to be using Unity. We'll build it on the helm for the largest stat budget as we talked about, and it'll be at eye level 291 once you upgrade it all the way, which is pretty massive. And then our second one, which is a very, very fun legendary in my opinion, is called Secrets of the Unblinking Vigil. And when you gain the trick shot effects, which we are going to gain a lot of trick shot effects because our tier set, which I guess it didn't really, let me go back, I didn't talk about what the tier set does. Trick shots increases the damage of the affected shot by 30%, which means rapid fire aim shot gets 30% bonus damage. But now spending 40 focus grants you 1 charge of trick shots, right? So you're constantly spending 40 focus. I believe aim shot is 35 focus, and then arcane shot's 20 focus. Those numbers, I could be off on those numbers. I think that's right though. I can't. I'm not looking at it right in front of me, so I apologize for that. But basically, 1 aim shot and 1 arcane shot is a free 30% bonus trick shot attack, which is really, really strong. But why that's so good with Unblinking Vigil is that every time you gain trick shots, which is going to be a lot because we're getting this new way to gain trick shots, you have a 50% chance to refund a charge of aim shot. So basically, you're always going to have stacks of aim shot. You're gonna have a massive amount of aim shot charges, and your next aim shot will no longer consume any focus. But that will, even though it's not consuming focus, it will still use focus in the way that like spending 40 focus grants you a charge of trick shots, right? So it's got this cyclical kind of funnel feeling to it, where you're using an aim shot and it's giving you trick shots, which is giving you 30% bonus damage, which is giving you a free aim shot that's not going to consume any focus. So you're just constantly railing out these aim shots. It's going to feel really, really good next tier. So very much looking forward to this power. I think this is a wonderful addition to the Marksman Hunter kind of theme. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of damage. We're going to have insane AoE. We're going to have passive AoE. Absolutely great change. Great synergy with tier set. Free cast count as focused towards next empowered aim shot / rapid fire. This also works with rapid fire. And you're going to build it on the wrists because the hand slot is a tier piece. And once again, this is eye level 291 at tier 7, so going to be very fun. For our rings, we have 4 options. They're all crit mastery rings. If you want to do M+, Theater of Pain has 2 of our rings, which both will drop at I-262, I think. I really need to look up what the base M+15 is dropping at, but whatever that is. And then I-278 is from the Great Vault. They all have crit mastery. You want lots of crit, you want lots of mastery. You can also get it from the first boss of the new raid or the 10th boss of the new raid, Vigilant Guardian or Rygalon. The 10th boss is the one that's going to be like, this is the ring that you want to have. This is your actual best ring, but the other 3 are all very even, will all be I-278. Crit and mastery are pretty interchangeable. Great stats for us. If you have more of one, less of the other. Whatever you sim, always sim your characters. But whatever your sim tells you you need more stats of, that's the ring you should take. So just kind of, they all are I-278, they all have crit, they all have mastery, you know? So this is the only one that has a little bit more stats, a little bit more stamina, and drops at I-285 instead of 278. So this Rygalon ring is the only one that you're going to be like, I need that ring, right? The other 3 are, I'm happy with whatever I got, right? Our Cloak is going to be dropping from the Lords of Dread, which is the 9th boss of the new raid. It also, it does. The last 3 bosses, I don't know why I was thinking it was just the last 2. The last 3 bosses drop at I-285, which is really strong. However, I apologize, but I think this is the ugliest cape of all time, so, you know. It's got crit haste, but it's not perfect stats, but it is a little bit better just because it's got the higher stat budget, higher agility at 285 than any other 278 cape. So that's why we're going with this one. Our wrists drop from the 10th boss of the new raid, crit haste, eye level 285, same as before. These are what they look like. And if you haven't been noticing, I don't think I've been pointing this out, but I took a screenshot of what everything looks like, so you can kind of look at what they look like. And the belt is going to be, interestingly, going to drop from Tazavesh the Veiled Market. It has crit mastery, which is why I want it, and we can get it I-278 from the Great Vault, or whatever level it drops at from +15, so yeah. Oh, and finally, boots are going to drop from Halls of Atonement. They're crit mastery boots, they're eye level 278, and they're best in slot stats. So, with that being said, I thank you guys so much for watching. If you wouldn't mind leaving a like, a subscription, a comment, anything helps me out tremendously. I don't, go crazy, write whatever you want. I'm not limiting you. Maybe your moral compass should, but I'm not telling you what to write. But whatever you want to write, you write. So, yeah. That being said, thank you guys again, and hope you guys have a wonderful day. Peace out.